This past April, at the Pittsburgh Playhouse, I had the opportunity to see a production of Thornton Wilder's 1938 Pulitzer Prize-winning play, Our Town. It was a wonderful treatment, as you would expect, and as it has each time I've seen it, the play has given me much to think about. And why not? After all, playwright Edward Albee famously called the play Our Town the greatest American play ever written. And Our Town is one of the towering works of American theater. And yet, for all of the accolades and attention the play has received over the years, there's almost nothing to the production. There's barely a set, almost no scenery, and fewer props. There's even almost no conflict, at least nothing interpersonal. People get up, they eat breakfast, children go off to school, the milkman makes his rounds. People fall in love, couples marry, together they raise families, eventually they die. It's the most prosaic of plays. That's the whole story, told through the eyes of Emily, a single individual who, after dying in childbirth, is granted the opportunity to return for one single day of her life to review it again. Therein lies Thornton Wilder's genius. For the playwright understood that the ordinary stuff of human experience, of our existence, it's not actually ordinary at all. Indeed, the author once described Our Town as his attempt to discover infinite value in even the smallest events of daily living. The problem is that most of us, most of the time, we simply don't see the everyday events of our lives as infinitely valuable. Why? Because, as Emily points out from the play, we are simply too busy living our lives to actually notice them. But Emily notices. She sees the ticking of the clock, the passage of time. She watches as everyone scurries here and there, to and fro, to meet the demands of the day. And she wants to invite them to stop, to pause, to appreciate, if only for a moment, all that is before them. Because from beyond the grave, Emily appreciates something the rest of the family does not. One day, it all ends. And so she turns to the stage manager and asks the one most haunting question in perhaps all of American theater: do human beings ever truly realize life while they are living it? There's a Hebrew expression I love very much. It says, Mishaneh makom, Mishaneh mazal. Usually it's translated as change your place, change your luck. But I prefer to translate it somewhat differently. I prefer change your position, change your point of view, and you change your perspective entirely. Sometimes we need to stand somewhere else than where we are usually. We need a new vantage point. We need to change our position in order to see, to truly perceive what has been right in front of us all the time. Which brings us to the prophet Isaiah, whose words we heard once more this morning. Because if you listen carefully to the prophet Isaiah's words, you begin to notice something. Isaiah is constantly inviting us to change our position, to gain a new vantage point, to alter our positioning and gain a new perspective. Here again the prophet's words: listen to me, you who pursue justice, you who seek the eternal. Look to the rock from which you were hewn. Look to Abraham your father and Sarah who gave you birth. Lift your eyes to the heavens. Look at the earth beneath your feet. Look here, look there, lift up your eyes. Isaiah is inviting us to change our gaze, our perspective. It helps to appreciate that Isaiah was speaking to people who had every reason to look only at what was immediately in front of them. The generation to whom Isaiah was speaking is familiar with uncertainty, with dislocation, with exile. They knew great disappointment. Jerusalem had been destroyed, the temple is gone, many of their people have been carried away. institutions and uncertainties by which the ancient Israelites organized and understood their lives, these have collapsed, which means that when Isaiah tells the people to look at their circumstances anew, he is not offering something pleasant by way of spiritual or pastoral care or an exercise in mindfulness. Instead, the prophet is giving each of us guidance in speaking to those who have reason to despair. And he is offering to each of us a new perspective by which to view our current reality. However, notice that Isaiah does not encourage the people not to look at their reality. His advice is neither to ignore nor to minimize the truth of their lives. Instead, he tells them to gain a wider perspective. First, Isaiah suggests, look backward. Look to the rock for which you were hewn. Look to Abraham your father and Sarah who gave you birth. Why the rock from whence you come? Why Abraham and Sarah? Because Isaiah is reminding the people of their origins. Abraham and Sarah represent an impossibly small beginning from which an entire people emerge. In other words, when troubled, look to that which precedes you and remember, you have been in difficult, if not impossible, places before. Your circumstances are not the first chapter of the story. They shall not be the final word either. Then Isaiah changes the direction of our gaze. Do not look only backward, he says, but rather look up to the heavens and look at the earth beneath. Situations that may feel overwhelming when they fill our field of vision can look very different when placed against a larger horizon. Perspective is essential. Proportion is important in order that we might discover hope. And then Isaiah does something even more radical still. He says, after casting your glances backward to whence you have come, after looking to the heavens and the earth below, Isaiah says, look forward. The future, your future, is ahead of you. Because the present reality you experience and suffer today is not the entirety of the tale, and thus your despair must never be mistaken for your destiny. Thornton Wilder, the playwright, took one small girl in one small New Hampshire hamlet, one girl's experience of her life in hindsight, and placed it against the enormity of time and eternity. And suddenly, everything that was once ordinary looks different. And so too the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah similarly took one frightened, displaced generation, a people who at the time could see little beyond the calamity immediately before them. And Isaiah invites them, and in so doing invites each of us to shift our position, to change our placement, and thereby to gain a wholly new perspective. Both the prophet Isaiah and the Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright Thornton Wilder are asking us to see the particulars of our experience from a larger vantage point. And therein they call upon us to recognize what matters, what passes, and what ultimately endures. Mishaneh makom, mishaneh mazal. Change your position and you change your perspective. Perhaps this is one of the greatest of tasks that falls to religion and ultimately to each of us in our own lives. Not necessarily to change the circumstances of our lives, for that may not be possible, but to change our perspective on what we experience, what those experiences might mean, where we stand in relationship to them, and how we might be changed thereby for blessing. And to accomplish this, Isaiah gives us the coordinates with which to chart a new perspective. Look backward, he says. Remember where you come from. Remember those who came before you. Remember what they endured and what they built such that you are here. Truly a miracle. Look upward and all about you, Isaiah continues. Lift your eyes to the heavens and to the earth beneath. Remember that this moment, however consuming it may seem, however overwhelming it may be felt, that is not the whole horizon. Today is neither the whole of the story nor the end of our lives. And then always be sure to look forward, because the circumstances we inhabit today are not the end, just as they are not the final word in the Jewish people's story in Isaiah's day. Isaiah knew that the people to whom he spoke, just like you and me, could not necessarily change their makom, their place or circumstance, at least not in that present moment, and certainly not on their own. But Isaiah could and does, in fact, ask the Israelites, and by extension invites each of us to consider changing where we stand in relation to our experiences, and thereby to be changed by the experiences themselves. The prophet Isaiah teaches us where to look. Mishaneh makom, mishaneh mazal. Change your position and you change your perspective. Look backward, look upward, and look to exactly where you are, and then always look forward. And then with a new perspective, look once more again. Amen.